Good morning. Here on another episode of Cooking with Godsons. We're going to show you how we prepare beef brisket. Okay, this beef brisket is an upper choice cut. Okay, I've been looking at a lot of YouTube videos and I see how people are raving about the upper choice cut brisket that Goldies use. Okay, so this is the same brisket we use at Godsons. Okay, we just have a different method of how we trim things over here. I'm going to show y'all how we prepare brisket over here at Godsons. A lot of people tend to take a lot off. Me, whenever I cut, I check out the decal fat. This is the decal fat right here. This is not going to render down too much on the grill. So this is what I do. I take my knife and first I go along here. And I take that strip off. That way I can see how much fat cap is on the top of my flat. I normally try to get it down to 1/4 inch. Okay. If I get quiet on you, just know that I'm over here concentrating. This is a sharp knife and I don't want to cut myself. Me, I typically, I go around the sides real light. Don't want to take too much off because like I said, I am a barbecue cook and I do want as much meat as possible. All these trimmings, the ones that have the meat in them still, I cut out the fat and all this will get ground into sausage. I take the knife and I lay it flat and I go right down the top of the decal fat. And I make it flat along with the meat. I'm going to trim it up a little bit more around the decal, but I leave it in. I've learned over time that cooking these briskets, it's best to leave this in there. It's good for retaining moisture during the cook. You don't want to dry this part out. This can always help you during the cook. Okay. A lot of this beef tallow, well, it's beef fat. Do not throw it away. If you got your brisket, don't throw it away. This stuff right here, I'll show you another video of what you can do with this later on. It works magics. I come along around the side. Like I said, all this stuff right here, it'll get thrown in the grind for hamburger or either sausage. So I'm not too much worried about it. Okay, I look at got a little bit of silver skin here. Take a little bit off. Not gonna go too aggressive with cutting on the brisket. Take my knife and just lay it flat, almost if you're filleting a fish, and just slide on down that brisket all the way to the end, and I flip it back, and I go back the other way. A lot of the stuff that doesn't make it to sausage, my cane corso, he'll get all that. He loves when daddy has to trim briskets. He knows he's gonna get a good snack. Okay, still got a little silver skin right down here. This is right here. I prefer not to have silver skin on it. I know me, when I was hunting deer years ago, I always removed the silver skin out of the meat when I process my deer meat. So I do the same thing when it comes to these briskets. I remove the silver skin. That's just my preference. A lot of people tend to leave it. I've been seeing a lot of these videos where people, they're starting to cook briskets upside down on the fat cap. I really don't understand that method right there. Me, I'm a person, I do like to try new things. I was sitting there just scratching my head. I'm like, should I try it out? Or should I just leave it for those pellet cookers? I think my bark forms good enough on my brisket that I don't need to turn it upside down on that grill that I have in mine. I have a 500-gallon reverse flow smoker. I call her Brandy. She puts out marvelous product. I think we have some of the best brisket here at God's Sons. A lot of people have been telling me, hey, Kenny, man, why don't you take the opportunity to get into a barbecue competition with that brisket that you have? I'm sure you could win awards with it. Me, I have anxiety so bad when it comes to getting everything prepared that I would love to do a barbecue competition one day, just to have a bragging rights and to look at some hardware on top of the wall, just to be able to look at something that, hey, I know that here I have done put years of work in this, and I'm able to do exactly what I want to accomplish, the dreams that I'm accomplishing. This whole thing right here with the content is all new to me. I don't see how people somewhat do it. You're basically talking to yourself at the moment. I don't want nobody to sit up and be like, man, is he crazy? He's over there talking to himself. So I'm kind of getting used to the whole niche of this thing right here. Like I sit up here and I take this knife and I continue to take off little stuff that whenever you get it from out of the package, you may have these little gouges in it, and I normally try to just even them out because it just makes a better surface for whenever I'm applying rub. And whenever you got it on the grill, you don't want the meat to burn in those little areas that's sticking off of it. So me, I typically tend to take them off because why would I want something burnt on there other than the bark? Okay, here we're almost done with the bottom. We'll take this knife right here and slide on across the top. Take a little of that off right there. I slide on along the side. I know you're not on this side to see what I'm doing. I'll flip it around and give you a view of the cut I just made. Okay, I'm gonna do another cut right here. What I'm trying to do is kind of make this right here more aerodynamic. How's the weather where you are? Here I am in North Florida, and I woke up this morning and it was 29 degrees here in North Florida. Can you believe that? They always said if you don't like the weather in Florida, hey, wait 5 minutes. Usually I try to get these babies on a little later on during the day, but in the fact that it's supposed to be a high of 54 for the total today, and then we're gonna dip down to 28 tonight. I really don't want to be in and out messing with no fire at no 28 degrees. So I'm gonna do the due diligence, get a head start on everything today. Now I'm flipping it over and checking out the fat cap. Here with the fat cap, we have just a little bit to take off over here. And over here, we have a good little bit to take off to get it down to a 1/4 of an inch that we like to use. Okay, right here, we have this big hunk of fat. What I normally do, I lay my knife flat on top of the brisket and I go across the top of it and I knock that heel down. I use this side of the brisket to keep my knife straight to where I don't drop down too much and cut into my meat on this side right here, because this fat, it helps to keep the moisture in it, and I don't want to remove too much off of it. Okay, I'm gonna continue to remove some more of this fat. Me, I usually like to keep these briskets a lot colder than this. Whenever I first take them out of the refrigerator, they're a lot colder and it's easier to work with when the fat is more firmer. Once it warms up to room temperature, the fat tends to move around and it doesn't make the job easier when you do that. Over here, I take my knife. Always cut away from yourself. Never cut towards yourself, cut away. Pretty cut, showing how much meat I have to actually work with over here on this side. Okay, like I said, this is my method on how I trim my briskets. There are tons of methods that people use out here. This is the method that I use. Most people are more aggressive. They try to cut a lot down off the meat. I tend to try to save as much as I possibly can because, hey, a lot of people stop by this food truck and I need as much brisket as I possibly can have. Here, I lay my knife flat and continue to go on round, Boy, this fat is, this is a pretty brisket right here. The fat is gonna render down good on this one. Like I said, I'm about to my liking on where I want the trimness of the fat. Don't want to take too much off. Let's say the more you have, really, you just have a hard time rendering it down if you leave a lot on it. For me, I try to take as much as I possibly can off the top of it. That way I don't dry the meat out. Because some people love to lean in, and the lean in, I've learned that if I leave this just a little thicker than the 1/4 of an inch like most of us cooks like to do on the brisket at the end, it tends to be a little bit more moist. That's just my preference on a method I've tried. This fat cap at the end, it's thick right along up in here, so I really don't want to cut down too much because I don't want to pull right here. But I'm going to try to work it down a little bit more. As I said before, it's a lot easier to work with these briskets if the fat is kind of firm. You really want to let it sit in the refrigerator for a while before you cut on it. It makes it a lot more easier. You definitely need a sharp knife when you're doing these briskets. You definitely need a sharp knife. It makes the job a lot easier. I tend to pick my hand up under the bottom of the brisket. I put my hand, place it up underneath the bottom, and the spots that are kind of low, that I need to tweak a little bit more, I take my finger and I press up. That way I could just go like this. And then once I clear the spot out, I remove my hand and go back across it again and see how much I need to take off. Right now, the brisket is looking pretty good. Have a nice surface. It's all even right now. Right here, we have a little valley. I tend to take my knife and I'll turn it this way right here. Turn it that way and peel that off. And that little valley kind of disappears. Like I said before, I've learned over trial and error that you can make a lot of mistakes doing little things, but those mistakes are actually lessons that you've learned. Because one thing about a mistake, if you pay for it, you won't make it again. My granddaddy always taught me, or told me this: hey, you paid for that mistake, that's bought sense right there. You won't make that again. So right here, I'm gonna take the knife and I'm gonna go around, because this small end right here is so thin, you end up burning it. So it's best to just come on around like this. To the thicker side, it's getting a little thicker. Okay, so right here, this side right here is thick. You really don't want to make too much of a cutoff on this side. See, I take the knife and I'll, instead of holding it down, I'll pick it up and I'll go around like that. Now, that brisket is pretty much ready to be seasoned, and then should be ready for the smoker. Got a little bit more tweaking I could do right over here. See all this fat right here that you could pull off on the side if you were just to push your hand down. It's kind of laying over. What I do is I push it over with my hand. Let me turn it around to where you can see what I'm talking about. This fat right here is kind of hanging over. I push over like this with my hand. Watch your fingers when you're making that cut. Push over. Me, I've been cooking for about, with briskets, I've been cooking for over 10 years. So a lot of the mistakes that I've made over the years, hey, I corrected them and I learned. Because hey, when I first cooked brisket one time, man, I had that thing, it looked marvelous. The bark was amazing, but I didn't, when I took it off the grill, I let it rest, but I didn't know how to cut it. And one thing about this piece of meat, if you don't know how to make the cuts on it whenever you're preparing it and serving it, man, you will mess it up after putting all that hard work into it. So you don't want to just grab this piece of meat and just think that, hey man, I cook ribs, I can cook brisket. Hey, them ribs, They be done well before this brisket do. Me, I like to cook mine 16 hours, low and slow. Me, I use post oak and blackjack. I get a great bark whenever I cook with it. So that's the wood that I use whenever I'm cooking briskets. So anyway, this brisket right here is ready for the grill. Well, at least ready to be seasoned. Oh, I seen something that I could possibly take off. Well, my wife, when she first seen me cleaning briskets, she was like, "What are you doing? You're cutting too much meat off of them. Stop cutting all that meat off." I'm like, "Baby, just chill. Just chill. I'm only Swiss cheesing this brisket right now. I'm gonna make it look good. And I promise you, everything that I'm taking off, you don't wanna eat. Right now, it look like I'm Swiss cheesing it. But I'm gonna show you how it's gonna look when I'm done with it. Pretty. All this meat right here I'm taking off, going into sausage. I know I keep telling y'all that, but I can't wait to try it out. Never had brisket sausage before. We grew up on pork in my family. So I'm trying to fade away from the pork so heavy and try this beef out. They say it ain't too bad on you. Okay, got everything on there that I want to take off of there. Let me stop talking, I'm making mistakes. I didn't have everything that I wanted off of it. There's still a piece here. What the? Okay, that is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, right? This is where the burn ends happen on the side right here. You get your burn ends from over here. This is the point, this is the flat. Most briskets tend to have a big mohawk over here on the side. But this one right here, we really didn't have to do too much work with it. The mohawk that's normally there isn't there. So